Hey everyone, it's Mason Hutchison, and you're listening to Herb Rally, your daily herbal podcast. We come off new episodes about 5 days a week, so be sure to tune in often. Our goal for the show is to help you along your herbalist journey no matter what stage you're at. In this episode of the Herbalist Hour, I'm joined by Dr. Keren Dolan. Keren is the American Herbalists Guild Board Chair. She's also an herbalist and nutrition specialist, aromatherapist, a mom and a wife, and she wears all sorts of hats. I had an absolutely wonderful time meeting Keren and getting to know her background and about all of the incredible work she's accomplished. We also chatted a lot about the American Herbalists Guild as well as their upcoming symposium. So a huge shout out and thank you to Keren for joining me on the show, and thanks to you for listening. But before we get into the show, I want to tell you about an upcoming free webinar with our good friend Emily Ruff. And the webinar is called Staying True to Your Roots as You Branch Out. So this webinar is November 7th at 6 p.m. Central Time. And you've launched your herbal practice and are steadily growing the base of clients you serve. Your schedule is filling up with client visits and the administrative work that accompanies it. How do you stay true to the deeper values of herbalism that drew you into the field while balancing the office time, technology, and networking that often accompany growing your professional practice? So that's what this webinar is all about, is answering those questions. And again, this is a free webinar with Emily Ruff on November 7th, 2023, called Staying True to Your Roots as You Branch Out. And I will leave a link to this free webinar in the podcast show notes. Also, before we get into the show, I want to say a huge shout out and thank you to our presenting sponsor of the Herbalist Hour, and that is Oshala Farm. So if you're looking for high quality organic herbs grown right here in the USA, Southern Oregon to be exact, look no further than Oshala Farm. You can learn more about them at oshalafarm.com and learn all about the 80 different medicinal plants that they grow and sell, along with lots of other great herbal products. So thanks again to Oshala Farm for sponsoring the Herbalist Hour. That's going to do it for me this time around. Hope you enjoyed today's episode with Dr. Keren Dolan.
Welcome to the Herbalist Hour. This is where community gather, merging the power of people and the flowers, the sweet and the bitter to the salty, the sour. Umami, it's time for the Herbalist Hour.
Welcome back to the Herbalist Hour. Today I'm really honored to have on Dr. Keren Dolan. Welcome to the show, Keren.
Thank you so much, Mason. So glad to be here.
Likewise. Yeah, I'm excited to get to know you a little bit more. This is our first ever conversation. So let's get to know Keren a little bit more. What were you like as a kiddo?
That's really targeted, just like straight to the point question.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
Let me see how clear I can be in my answer. Sure. I was industrious and creative and an annoying little sister. Those were kind of my main priorities. I was a little mischievous around that, but very much enjoyed, getting out there, getting in the soil. Back when people used to actually make those little pies of mud pies, and things like that, climb trees. So that's kind of how I grew up and really loved that, just being out there, and lots of fun.
When you say industrious, does that also mean that you were, like, say, a really good student as well?
I was a little bit obsessive about being a good student, initially thinking it was like expected. It was like kind of part of my family culture, especially being, kind of coming from this kind of highly charged path from having generations of my as an African American in the US, like toward making sure that each generation makes it better for the next generation. So education was so much priority. It felt like a holy quest for me, that I really needed to do that. So yeah, that was a big part of what I did.
I bet, and I'll be reading some of your accolades and accomplishments later. But yeah, I kind of presumed you were probably a rather good student. But what led you into the path of, say, herbalism and nutrition and all of that?
So I, when I was a kid, like I did this whole very introspective thing when I was like in 6th, 7th grade. Like, what do I want to be? And I really wanted to be a healer, right? And I didn't know what that looked like. And then, but growing up, my own experience just with how my mom would care for me, how I would see herbs like being used around in my family. And then and finding challenges with like kind of conventional models of care, kind of as I was like getting sick, right? And not being able to get better unless I got some additional support from herbs. That's where I really started to kind of first get the inkling that maybe this is kind of the path for me. It took like a lot of negotiating because our school system doesn't really necessarily guide you that way, right? So I was like pre-med at a large research university, like thinking that was the direction I had to go when I actually finally got to branch off into the plants and follow that path.
So you were a nutritionist first and then an herbalist?
Oh, I was actually psychology. I was
Oh,
psychology
wow.
undergrad, and I wanted to go on for to be a psychiatrist. I was really interested in child clinical psychiatry. Yeah. So that was, and then interestingly, as a psychologist, what the first way I got to know herbs really intimately was before it was actually through essential oils, was through aromatics when I discovered aromatherapy. Before it was like a thing, before everybody kind of, knew about essential oils and aromatherapy, it was when it was a little more fringe. And I tell folks like I discovered it in a way that like kind of everyone discovered anything worth really knowing in the 90s, which was at the mall. And so I found a lady who had an amazing aromatherapy shop and I fell in love. And then the oils, I wanted to know more. I'm like, tell me, like this bottle, you can't really have a relation. Like as much as you get their essence, that scent, it's almost like someone walks past with a perfume. You're like, I want to know that person. Totally. And so that led me to the herbs. And then the herbs led me to nutrition.
So the aromatherapy shop at the mall, that wasn't Sephora, was it?
No. No, it was a one-off shop. This amazing lady, she just, I don't know who that lady was. I wish I knew her name. But yeah, it was just her own little spot that when you walked in, it was just essential oils on the wall with the bottles. It was clean and clear. And it was just the whole focus was, let me introduce you to this wonderful world of aromatherapy. Yeah. Amazing.
So speaking of like, say, psychology and nutrition and herbalism, a little bit about my background is I would say in my early teens through late teens, I was rather like depressed and sad all the time. And one of my ways to healing myself was I learned that what you put in your body actually has an effect on your mood. Go figure, because, I probably grew up with what you call the standard American diet and whatnot. And so I experimented with a lot of different diets, but lo and behold, as I got healthier, ate, improved my diet and whatnot, I felt like it improved my mood quite a bit. Do you notice that, say, with your clients, you change up your diet and it affects their mood?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that was like some of my research, was when I was working on my doctorate, was looking at the role of like probiotics and things like that on mood, on mental and on cognitive health. Interestingly, there's so many different ways that our herbs also engage with the intestinal microbiome, right? And they call the brain, like the guts, like the second brain, right? So there's just so many, people don't talk about the neurotransmitters, the serotonin releasing and things in the gut, but it's so central, right? So that integration between food and herbs and digestive health and mood, truly, yeah, it's such a pivotal connection, and one that I wish we talked about more.
Amen. Yeah. And this is the second time I brought up this brand on the podcast, and we're not sponsored or anything by it, but there's this new soda that we've been buying as a family called Olipop on occasion. Do you know Olipop?
I love Olipop. Yes, they do such a good job. I don't know how they do it.
Isn't it amazing?
Yeah,
they really are.
Dr. Good ones. I was like, how did you do this? And I had prune juice in it, and I was this is amazing. I'm very impressed. Good job, Olipop.
Yeah, I mean, and if I recall correctly, I don't have a can in front of me, but say Jerusalem artichokes in there, dandelion root, probably some chicory, all these great prebiotic rich herbs that we all know and love as herbalists, and they're in these sodas that taste like the sodas we grew up drinking. You know what I mean? Like you said, Dr. Goodwin is like the comp for Dr. Pepper, and they got root beer and all this other stuff. So it's neat to see in popular culture prebiotics, not just probiotics, becoming a thing.
Yes. And when they had me at Jerusalem Artichoke, I was like, what? When I
Hmm.
read the ingredients, and 9 grams of fiber essentially per can. It's like, if you're gonna have a soda, that's, but I'm with you. I mean, I'm not sponsored by or, partnered with Olipop anyway.
I actually DM'd them on Instagram to see if someone wanted to come on the podcast just to talk about their story and whatnot. I also want to say there might only be like 2 or 3 grams of sugar in it. Don't quote me on that, but it's a pretty low amount compared to, like, say, your high fructose corn syrup and your average soda.
Yeah, they do a good job. They use something called allulose, which is not
Mm.
something that is super common, and kind of it's like emerging in food science, which is a whole, but this to me, I mean, I think it's beautiful. And I love to see them trying to integrate all of these herbs in this way.
I
Yeah.
love it. Yeah, and I didn't know we were going to go the soda route when I started talking to Dr. Keren Dolan, but here we are. So getting back on track and learning more about your story, who have been some of your either herbal mentors or nutrition mentors along the way?
So I am so grateful to kind of have all of these different, amazing mentors. I studied at Maryland University of Integrative Health for my master's in therapeutic herbalism and my postmaster's in clinical herbalism. So Bevan, everybody loves Bevan, right? Bevan is amazing. Michael Thames, or Bodie Thames, really. James Snow, Kevin Spellman. These are all folks, Andrew Pengelly, just these amazing herbalists that I've gotten to study with, and Jillian Bar-Ov, a great clinical herbalist, Camille Freeman. So these folks were kind of my initial core, like, intro into herbal medicine. And I mean, what an amazing group. And I have to also give big shout out to Beverly Hawkins. Her school is West Coast Institute of Aromatherapy, but I did like a 3-year program with her before I started herbal medicine. And if it weren't for the way that she wove in the herbs to understand kind of the plants behind the essential oils, I don't think I would have ever ended up here. So all of those folks, yeah, are my big heroes.
Very cool. Yeah, and some of those folks have been on the Herbalist Hour. Kevin Spellman will be on, I want to say, in about a month or so. So I'm really excited to talk to him. Hopefully he keeps things in layman's terms for me so I could actually have a conversation with him.
He does a great job with that. His
Yeah,
metaphors are really, really good. So yeah.
that's good. Well, so a little bit about your background. First and foremost, I want to tell the audience that Keren is I want to say, is it like the head chair of the American Herbalist Guild, or what do you call
The
it?
chair of the board. So the board chair.
The board chair.
Mhm.
Very good. So you are a licensed dietitian nutritionist, a certified nutrition specialist, a fellow of the American College of Nutrition, a registered herbalist through the American Herbalist Guild, a regional director of the National Association of Holistic Aromatherapy, and you also have a BA in psychology and a certificate in holistic aromatherapy, as we just covered. Plus, yeah, you're the board chair of the AHG. I'm just kind of curious, with all that in mind, what does a typical week look like for you? Are you a, say, practicing nutritionist or herbalist? Do you see clients? What does like a work week like for you?
Yeah, definitely. So I'm also, like, what you don't see on there is I'm also mom. I've got
Okay,
I've got 3 kids,
that's a job.
and then a dog that is very much, like my, another one, fourth one in there, and a partner. So,
Yeah.
and I homeschool, right? So having all of that woven together means that my week can be a little disjointed. And some of the ways that I practice and I approach my craft, kind of that, is through the lens of wanting to be able to have that flexibility to support my kids while they're still young enough to need it, right?
Totally.
So basically, I do have my practice is Nourish Well, and I integrate both clinical functional nutrition and Western clinical herbalism in that into, like, what I consider to be functional phytotherapy, right? And so everything that I do through my practice, that I cannot separate out the nutrition side, the functional side from the herbal side. It's all there. And I specialize in complex chronic cases, like chronic illnesses or
Yep.
dysregulation. So often trauma is a big part of that. And so I'm actually in my advanced year for somatic experiencing, trained to be a somatic experiencing practitioner. If you know of Peter Levine's work, and and trauma healing, but that has come into my practice. So, in such a potent way.
Yeah.
So that's like, I do that part-time, like Fridays and Saturdays essentially are mostly my clinical days. And then I teach the university, Maryland University of Integrative Health. So I teach in the herbal program as well as nutrition. So I do that, kind of in those other days. And then I'm a mentor for the Nutrition Herbal Collective. So I mentor people who are working toward our RH or their CNS, right? So kind of all of those things combined, that's basically how I divide my work week. And rotate that around the time that I'm spending either serving, like with the American Herbalists Guild, or caring for the family, right? And being there with the kids. So it's very full. It's a very full life and full time. And I hope I'll be able to spend more time practicing and kind of less time juggling the other kind of like the things I do around it as they get older.
Absolutely. How old are your kiddos?
I've got a 17-year-old,
Okay,
a 16-year-old, and an 11-year-old.
and they've been homeschooled this whole time?
They have, yes.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Very cool. Yeah, we just started homeschooling our daughter last year, but it's only kind of temporary, so it's like a 2-year thing, and then she's going to go back to public school soon. But yeah, so we're just kind of getting used to that whole lifestyle and everything. She just turned 12.
Okay, yeah. I always thought it would be temporary in the beginning, Mason. Just saying.
Yeah. She has kind of a unique situation where she goes between Wisconsin and Oregon. But yeah, she'll likely be going to public school and starting in 8th grade. But we'll see how that goes. That's to be. That's tentative. We'll see how that goes. Just a quick break from the show to thank our presenting sponsor, Oshala Farm. Oshala Farm is a beautiful and vibrant certified organic herb farm based in Southern Oregon, where they grow and sell over 80 different plant species. The founders, Elise and Jeff Higley, have been longtime friends, so I highly trust their growing methods and ethics. You'll love the potency and vibrancy of all the herbs they have to offer. To learn more and purchase their herbs and other organic goods, head to oshalafarm.com. So thanks once again to Oshala Farm for sponsoring the Herbalist Hour. Now back to the show. Enjoy. How did you get involved with the AHG originally?
It's actually really fun. So I think it's fun. When I was at UVA, I was doing my undergrad and I was finishing up, I was really trying to figure out how to find the path of herbal medicine because it wasn't there, right? Like I just didn't know. And a friend of mine said, you should check and see if there are any professional associations out there, because that's often kind of, which was, oh, okay, yeah. So when I looked, I found American Herbalists Guild, and it essentially laid out the path. And I was like, whoa, and it was a community of people who were doing what I want to do, who span so many different backgrounds. And it was like perfect for me. And so that's how I got connected with the organization.
I'm sure at that moment in time, you weren't thinking, oh, I bet I'll be the board chair someday.
No, of course not. I was looking at the fact that it was the governing council, and I was like, wow, how many decades they've been, and yeah, I had when I actually was nominated to the board back in, like, at this point would have been 2019 to start like 2020. I was shocked. I was like, I'm nowhere near far enough along in my career. But that's what I've learned working with the board is like, no, this isn't herbalism, like the herbal community. It's not that kind of like in some other industries where it's only once you've been doing this for 50 years that you can even be considered, that our members, we want to engage our membership. So yeah, it's been fun to roll up my sleeves and actually jump in and be a part of this work.
Yeah, you may not have to be doing it for 50 years, but there are very strict standards to be a registered herbalist. And I was just hanging out with an herbalist named Betsy Miller at the Great Lakes Herb Fair, and she just recently became a registered herbalist, which I was super happy for, because as we were sitting around the fire at the event, she was telling us how many I don't even remember, hundreds of hours or whatever she put into it. Not only that, but just studying for the, I want to say, test to become a registered herbalist. And yeah, I think it's a very beneficial community that y'all have. Can you tell us maybe some of the perks of being associated with the American Herbalist Guild, whether you are a registered herbalist or just say like a member and kind of involved with everything going on over there?
Exactly. Yes. I mean, I love that you said that because registered herbalist, like even same for me as Betsy. I love Betsy, by the way. Hi, Betsy. This was like, it was the hardest, like of all of the different paths and credentials and different things. The RH was the last one that I attained, and the one that I think I probably shed the most tears around of joy, right? Because it was so, it meant so much to me for my journey, right? And it's not everyone's journey. And we recognize that. The American Herbalist Guild, like we are about clinical herbalism. And especially if you want to be someone who, like for me, I wanted to integrate with my nutrition work, right? I wanted to be, or, to be able to integrate more with a conventional model where I might have like referrals in and out. And sometimes that path is facilitated when you have a credential that someone can look to say, oh, I understand that this means that you've done this kind of training. And there's so many incredible herbalists that they have no interest in the RH, right? Because of the path, and they still are a part of our community. We still feel like that's an essential part, like pulse, and really developing herbal medicine in America, and being kind of a beacon around the world for how can we kind of get a seat at the table and share with folks what we have to bring. So yeah, there's a tremendous benefit to folks, whether you're a student, whether you're just, you own a shop, like a nutrition shop or a health food store, and you've got people coming in. We have a bunch of like constantly different webinars and resources and archived articles from amazing herbalists of all different stripes who are constantly putting out this information so that we can grow and elevate our work and also stay rooted to our ancestry, to our history. So it's a great organization to be a part of.
Love that. Can you tell us more about your role with AHG?
Yeah, so as the board chair, essentially, I get the privilege of kind of working with the various committees. So our committee structure is like we have different committees that work on different aspects of our organization. We're a membership-based nonprofit, right? So everyone kind of, we're all voting members. So we've got committees that are working on like that admissions review, right? So the folks that are on the path toward wanting to be an RH. We've got membership committees and education committees and diversity, equity, inclusion committees. And all the goals of all of these different committees are really allowing us to support our membership better in all of these different areas. And then chapters as well, kind of really wanting to connect with folks in the community that might be organizing around this work. And so I kind of work with as chair of the board, like overview, kind of oversight, making sure that all of the bylaws and the organization are being held with integrity in service to our members, right? And then supporting the executive director, Mimi, who is amazing. Everyone knows. And if you see Mimi, it's her 10th anniversary year as executive director of HG.
Wow.
So please give her a big shout and a high five and a hug because she's amazing. But having the privilege of working alongside, kind of supporting her in the office, because we have a great team. That's kind of the area where I come in, is really cheerleader and supporter.
Yeah, shout out Mimi Hernandez. I just got an email from someone at National Geographic, which is all because Mimi just wrote a book, or just released a book, or it's coming out soon. And so we're going to have Mimi on the show here at some point to talk about her new book with National Geographic.
Yes. I keep asking, do I get a signed copy? I really want a signed copy. I think it's amazing. She got so much as an herbalist in her own right. She was serving, long before she became ED even. So I'm so glad she'll be coming on. Yeah.
Heck yeah. Yeah. I want to say I've probably known Mimi for about 10 years. Back when I worked at Mountain Rose Herbs, we would collaborate with her on various projects, but man, time flies. 10 years as the executive director. That's a lot of work.
Yes, it is. Yeah, blood, sweat, and tears that never stop, right?
Yeah.
Only people do what goes into it. So, yeah.
Well, it sounds like you help mentor people in becoming a registered herbalist. Can you kind of give us an overview of what that process looks like? How does one go from, say, just you're just getting going to becoming a registered herbalist with the American Herbalist Guild?
Yeah, definitely. So the process, is kind of undergoing a little bit. There's some changes kind of coming out, particularly where the team is working on a rubric to kind of clarify for folks exactly like what are they looking for. But ultimately, in order to be a registered herbalist, the goal is that you have a group of peers, herbal peers that can look at your work, your body of work, and your experience, and kind of concur that you have demonstrated like the training, the knowledge, and the experience to practice as a professional registered clinical herbalist in the US according to the guidelines of AHG, right? According to the way that we do it. And the founders, the folks that are kind of like our elders and really that disruptive energy that kind of really helped to create this to begin with, really had this vision of creating a place for people that where you have an emphasis on understanding kind of pathophysiology and physiology, like those backgrounds, like being able to integrate or communicate with what might be going on in a conventional model, in a conventional world, where you can translate your model, like kind of diagnostic model, into a way that can be supportive for people who might come in with different diagnoses. So whether you have come from a TCM background or Ayurvedic background or eclectic or biomedical or biopsychosocial and so on and so on, all of these different models, as long as you can actually understand like what's coming out when someone brings in their lab work and they're coming in with their history and the medical history, what is it they're facing, what is it you have to offer and support, how can you do it safely? Those are kind of the most important pillars of becoming a registered clinical herbalist, right? So there are lots of paths to get there. You don't have to go to a specific school, and you don't have to go through a specific program. You can even be someone who goes to symposium every year, and you do the clinical herb tracks, and you get these certificates, and you kind of cobble it together, but you're demonstrating competency, right? And that's what they're looking for. So that's a general overview without getting into all of the specifics in the rubric and putting you all to sleep.
For sure. Well, is there like, say, so many hours required, in the clinic studying with, like, say, a mentor? Is there anything like that?
So there are recommendations and rules of thumb, like kind of general guidelines, right? So the idea is like you want to have somewhere around 400 hours, let's say, of clinical, like that kind of training. And not all of that is on your own, right? Some of that is under supervision, some of that's on your own. You want to be able to show that you're consistently practicing. So they'll give a rule of thumb of like, in the past, it's been like something around 80 different client visits a year for a couple of years, right? Now, not everyone's going to hit all of those things precisely.
Yeah.
And there's some methods of learning that don't translate, beautifully into some kind of like this number of hours for training, right? So
Right.
that's why it's a conversation. That's why you have a group of people who are like really reviewing your work. You put together case reports, kind of documenting some of your cases that you've actually walked through and showing how you practice, how do you do this? And there are questions kind of checking on your knowledge. And then you have letters of recommendation that you're going to also submit along with your application. When I did my application, my total application at that time, it wasn't online. I had to send it in, but it was like 40 some pages. Yeah. Of all of, kind of putting together all of these different answers, all of the texts that I prefer, like my top 10 texts, all of my coursework that I've done, and then how do I practice, right? And once I put that all together, essentially, it's like my portfolio of who I am as a clinical herbalist that I can present and have these folks review. So that's essentially what they're doing now, looking for. And it's not to freak anyone out, right?
Yeah.
It's kind of to say, there are resources to guide folks. Like we have one of this, we started our associate membership level because we wanted to be able to capture people that might have a certificate or some training in herbal medicine and that they want to join that, they want to go on that path and they're like not sure quite how to do it. So if they come in as an associate member, they are going to have meetups and, like different resources that come together to help prepare them, to even get to that point to begin with. And even if you submit your application and maybe the first go round, you're not, they're like, we have these additional things we really want to see you develop. It's not a no, right? It's a yes. And, we want to look for these things to encourage you to develop in these particular areas so that you can really kind of meet that level of training that we're putting our stamp on. So there are resources to do that too. So we want folks to not be afraid to jump in and get on this path.
Well, it sounds like a perfect marriage, or maybe you guys are working towards a perfect marriage of inclusion and rigor. So I really like that.
Could I quote that, Mason? I think that was actually exactly right. A marriage of inclusion and rigor. Yeah.
Constantly seeking improvement on that, but in the meantime, it currently stands. It really does feel that way. So I really appreciate that. You brought up the symposium, the American Herbalist Guild Symposium. So when this releases, it'll happen in about a week or maybe a week and a half. But can you tell us what you're excited about the AHG Symposium for this year?
Yes. Okay. So I became chair last fall. So it's been about a year. And I have a tremendous team all together on our board, but particularly my executive team. And I got Sam Perry and Tenby Owens and Sophia Butcher, and there are a bunch of folks that have been working with me and our executive team kind of conversations, particularly with Sam Perry, who's a great herbalist. I don't know if you've had him on yet, but if not,
No.
I hope you bring him on. Amazing guy. We talked about how we feel disconnected from our herbal roots, like that's all of we put a lot of energy into reaching out, into trying to include, which is great and important and vital. And we sometimes feel like we're doing that in a disembodied way as an organization, right? That we feel disconnected and have felt disconnected from, well, where does this actually start, right? Where does it, who are the shoulders we're standing on? What land are we, kind of sprouting from? And so this idea of preserving herbal legacies, like we kind of just started asking one another, like, how did you, what's your real journey? Like there's your short term, like short clock journey here. And then what's your like real journey? Like, how did you really come to be here? And realized there's just so much richness and diversity in our communities and also repeated themes, that we see that tie us together. And we want to highlight that because we think that's the way to not only be more inclusive because we share so much, regardless of how we got here, but also honor our diversity because we all sprout from such rich kind of divergent soils and gardens. So that was like our whole push. And that's what this AHG Symposium is about, preserving those herbal legacies and stories. And we have fantastic speakers that are going to be kind of sharing some really fascinating history and origin stories. We have Dr. Claudia Ford, who's going to be our keynote. That's amazing. And then we have for the clinical herbalist piece, right? Because we have folks that are training and learning a certificate track. There's an additional kind of sub-track that goes along with that, preserving herbal legacies around low-dose botanicals, which who doesn't love low-dose botanicals? That's like the juicy good stuff, right?
That's right.
So I mean, it's got so much, and not everyone can get to Colorado. Honestly, for so many people, it's just like a hard year and a hard time to get out. So some folks will be there in person, which we love. And we have a dynamic online symposium too. So folks can engage with this fantastic symposium just wherever you are in a way that works for you. So, yeah.
Do you know if all of the classes will be available online?
So generally, there's like an online track, right? So you can kind of see when you go on to the American Herbalists Guild website, we have a whole list of kind of what's included. We have pre-symposium and post-symposium intensives as well that you can do through the online symposium. We have some special features too, like on Friday, the Friday evening of the symposium, I get to have a dinner chat with Seven Song. So I'm really excited about that. And that's going to be, particularly focused on the online, for the
Awesome.
online, attendees. So there are lots of things there for both sides.
Can you go a little more into that chat you're going to have with Seven Song? What's that
Yes,
all about? Yeah.
I know. Like we're gonna do like an online. It's like gonna be kind of in a Zoom set, kind of like this.
Hmm.
Well, I'll get to do this with Seven Song. We're over dinner, we'll just kind of be eating our food and chatting and hear his amazing stories. I mean, he's just such a wealth of knowledge anyway, right?
Totally.
So we'll be able to have folks on to hear from him and engage with him in that way. So that's exciting.
It might even be funny to listen to.
Oh yeah, I can't imagine it not being funny to listen to because he's a funny guy.
We
So
just we just interviewed him at the Great Lakes Herb Fair, and we haven't released the episode yet, but it's basically just all jokes. No, there's some good useful information in there as well.
that's
Uh,
awesome. That's
we lo-
awesome.
we love Seven Song, but so that this is October 13th to the 16th in Granby, Colorado. Um, to learn more, you could go to AmericanHerbalistGuild.com. Of course, the links will be in the show notes. Again, it'll probably be like maybe a week after we release this, but there'll still be tickets available then.
Totally. Oftentimes, especially for anyone who's like close or who can get there,
Yeah,
go for sure. I mean, there's nothing like being there in person, honestly. But anyone who can, like, even if you can't, don't miss out. If you can certainly join through the online symposium portion, and yeah, that'll be amazing. There'll be plenty of time to do it.
sure. Yeah, I've only been to one symposium somehow, and it was when they came to Oregon. Absolutely love that event. Herbalists are so fun to hang out with. So highly
Yes,
encourage you to go to the in-person event if you can. Otherwise, it is an annual event. And I want to say in the next few years, Mimi told me it might be in Asheville.
yes, we're gonna be in Asheville in the hills and like the kind of around the Black Hills. Is that it? Am I
Okay.
saying that right?
Sounds right.
But
Yeah.
yeah, it sounds right. Something,
Yeah.
what I mean. But
Yeah.
yeah, definitely in Asheville, and we're going to be kind of really focusing on making it, re-engaging it so it's also family friendly.
Totally.
Like especially pre-symposium, it was like not unusual. You bring the whole family, right?
Right.
I mean, there's something for everyone. So we want to make sure we preserve that path for the training for folks that are there for the clinical herbalism training as well. But we also want to connect to the roots. We want to bring in the folk herbal traditions. I think I heard there might even be some like root beer,
Oh.
making going on, right? So just to kind of really engage. And I think it'll be great to have it at our home base because that's really where the office Stabby's is kind of located in Asheville, North Carolina.
Asheville is one of my favorite cities too. So, yeah, if you can't make it this year in Colorado, definitely check out the event next year. Again, that's American Herbalists, plural, Guild. .com. Links will be in the show notes. Is there anything else you wanted to kind of talk about the event or the AHG in general before we kind of move on?
Well, just to say, anybody like there's so many different paths to membership, right? There's so many different ways to connect with the community. I just don't want people to walk away feeling like there's only a particular path, right? The American Herbalist Guild, we really want to kind of bring herbal medicine to you and also kind of support our role as herbalists in this state, in this country. So if you want to join as a member, I actually have a code for you all. It's like I think gives you 50% off membership, which is go AHG, all caps, GOAHG. And that's my personal code. So if you do that, you'll know that's, it's got my personal invitation there to say, please come join us. Once you're a member, we'd love to have you kind of joining on committees. You can serve on different committees. You can help out, let your voice be heard, let your ideas be known, and just help us contribute to making this organization better and better.
I love that. And I'm on the website right here, and I'm just kind of curious, is there a spot on the website that talks about the different available committees? Just out of my own personal curiosity.
That's a really good question. I mean,
It
it's
probably
right
is.
now, and I'm actually so glad that you mentioned that, because that brings me to one other piece too, which is that our website, for anyone who's known, listen, herbalists, I mean, we are not necessarily known for not to be anybody, but for to be the best web designers in the world. Listen, and there's some really great web designers, and there's some great things coming out there. Our website is utilitarian, like this
Yeah.
is to get the job done. And there's so many goals to kind of streamline it and improve it. With all of the updates that are going on from a technology standpoint, though, we actually are in the process of having to transition the platform in order to be able to stay online. And so when you go to the website, you'll see all around we have this Weaving the Web campaign,
Oh yeah.
because it's our goal is we need to stay online. Like we need to keep all of these archives, these resources, and all these things available to folks. That's how I found it. So if you're up for it, anyone that is willing to offer some help to the Weaving the Web campaign, $10, like we ask for like $37, but whatever you can give, please do help so that we can sustain and make it even better, a better experience and a better way for you to get access to the archives going forward, so that we can go forward, with our website. So that's going to be super important. The resources are on there. They're not always super easy to find, but what is super easy is that the office is always available. Like they don't work every single day, but if you send a message, you're just trying to get some insights or information, folks will get back to you. We have regular public webinars every month. We have meetups like regularly. So there are lots of ways that you can engage with the folks that are doing this work and make sure that you're integrated and part of the community.
That's great. Thank you for sharing. I'll leave a link to the Weaving the Web as well. And it does look like at the different, gift levels, there are like, there's some different perks that you could get. Looks like.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
A
So that's
incentive.
a little incentive.
Just to
Yeah. I
say
love
thank
that.
Yeah.
Very
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah.
Well, right on. That was a lot of fun to hear more about the American Herbalist Guild. I didn't know the, y'all should have a technology committee.
We actually started
kind
an
of do.
ad hoc one. And two of our board members are tech people,
Okay.
and that's just brand new. So they actually just started this year kind of looking at all of the requirements, looking at all. So anybody, I think that might roll off to be like an actual standalone committee. I think it's a great idea, Mason.
Very good.
So yeah, I'll credit you with that too.
All right, respect. Well, like you said, it is a utilitarian website. It's not so hard to look at. I think it's a pretty website, and there's a lot going on in there. Like there's a herbalist directory, which, fun fact, back in the day when Herb Rally first started, I don't know if you know this or not, Keren, but we are a herbalism events platform. That's how we got our start. We continue to list herbalism events to this day. And we used to list herbalists as well, to contact herbalists and stuff like that. Then that got to be too much of a headache, and I was like, well, how do I, I didn't feel ethically okay with that. So I was like, AHG is already kind of doing something like that anyway. So very robust website. Thanks for sharing. Well, why don't we transition a little bit? I was kind of curious. You seem like a great person to ask. Do you have any advice for the budding herbalist looking to make this a career? Now, as I mentioned earlier, a lot of herbalists say, one way to make it as an herbalist is to wear a lot of different hats. And Keren does wear a lot of different hats. So I'm just kind of curious if you want to kind of reiterate that advice, or do you have any other advice for the budding herbalist out there?
So I'll give advice. So this is advice that was given to me.
Yeah.
When I was in my early 20s, and I was told, like, if you love what you do and you're good at what you do, you'll be able to support yourself with what you do. And I think that one of the biggest things for being an herbalist is really understanding what it is that you love. What gives you that kind of like, yeah, this is my fire. This is my passion. And that you can really see yourself not only investing in that, but giving of yourself in that way, because that's what attracts people. Herbalists is not just about the plants, right? It's about the people we touch through our work. And that's what attracts people, is when you've got that fire, and I think you're a great example of that, Mason, in this work that you all are doing.
Thank you.
So I think if you're a budding herbalist wanting to figure out, the first thing is try different hats on, like see what you love, find what you love. And when you find what you love, envision what it is how do you see yourself integrating this in your life? Like, what do you love and how do you want to live? And when you put those two, that's a perfect marriage, right? You marry what you love with how you want to live. That's where the path becomes clear. And that's where we can say, all right, here's how you're going to get there, whether it's herbal product design, whether it's, different consulting, whether it's academia and teaching, whether it's clinical practice, whether it's botanical art, highlighting herbs and doing different monographs. I mean, there's so many paths, whether it's being a grower, right? So just find what you love and how do you want to live?
I love that so much. And I appreciate the kind words. And yeah, this has been a soul searching journey for me, as it is for all of us. And I love the idea of following your heart and at the same time, trying different things, because you're not really going to know if you like it until you try different things. Would you say that's kind of how you've led your life? Have you had like your heart kind of dictate like, oh my gosh, I can't get this out of my head and my soul. Like I have to go pursue this, because if I don't, I'm going to feel unfulfilled. Is that kind of how your journey's unfolded?
Yes and no. I think for me, like I mentioned to you, like right off the bat, is that in my role as a parent,
Yeah.
that's probably like before I became a parent, different folks parent in different ways. And sometimes it might not be a child. Sometimes it might be someone else that you love, someone else who you're caregiving for. But there's a shift that happens, right? Where the thing that, drove you becomes so intertwined in this life or these people that your goal is, how can I help? Like, how can I make things better for them? Right. They kind of, and for me, my kids and dealing with like the different challenges that might come up. One of my daughters has like one of those complex chronic kind of situations. And, the journey to how do I support my kids better? That's what really, really pushed me along. And that's how I ended up continuing to pursue these different paths. And then with that, I get the privilege of helping others, right? And I get the privilege of using that outside of my family to kind of be integrated in this broader community. But yeah, that's what drove me.
Very well said. Yeah, I can relate to that as well. Since you're a nutritionist, you probably don't know this, but Herb Rally has a free course called The Art of Frugal Nutrition. And it's all about helping people learn how to eat healthy foods on a budget, because there's this like misconception that healthy has to be expensive, which, in some regards it is, I suppose. But in other ways, I think there's hacks that you can do working in the kitchen and buying groceries. And I'm just kind of curious, if you have any advice for you've raised a family, and you know how expensive groceries are these days. I'm just curious, do you have any thoughts on eating healthy on a budget, just like general overview or advice?
Definitely. I do have advice on that. Number one, don't beat yourself up if you have to get a happy meal. You got a happy meal and chew your food really, really well. Okay. That's number one. Don't beat yourself up, right? That doesn't serve any.
I love that.
But seriously, like one of the things that folks don't realize, I think is so interesting. Yes, I'm constantly talking about, when you can, like getting organic, organic foods, getting, if you're eating meat, getting organic pastured, or, cage free, all of these, like grass fed, right? Like all non-GMO, like we kind of run down the list of all the things. Folks are like, dang, that's crazy expensive, right? Here's what's so fascinating is that there are two pieces. One is when you get food that it seems like the price point's higher, but it's nutrient dense, right? Because all of these things are nutrient dense. Number one, it's nutrient dense. Number two, you actually eat it. Like you slow down. You don't like inhale it. You actually slow down. You with gratitude, you take it in with all your senses. You chew 25, 30 times per bite. You really connect with your food. Here's what happens. You eat significantly less and you're full and you're satisfied because you're getting more nourishment and it's at a cheaper price point, right? When we get all of this like cheap food junk, we can scoff and eat like all day and we don't chew and it just goes in and like, and we don't get that nourishment. So to me, that's one of the biggest things is get quality food, really connect with it with gratitude, chew your food really well, and you'll see a difference for sure.
Oh, such good advice. And there's two parts there, I'd say. So we just did a little interview with Paul Bergner, and he's going to be our newest module in the Art of Frugal Nutrition. It's basically him talking for 30 minutes about nutrient density. So yeah, to your point, eat nutrient dense foods. And then I've interviewed Yakov Levine. He's a nutritionist in Eugene, Oregon, a couple times, and he kept emphasizing if you're eating, only eat. And it was pretty funny because I was at the time we were living in an RV, and we became accustomed to really, like, say, bad eating habits, in the sense that we weren't paying attention. We were watching TV. So I would tell him we were making our dinner and then eating our dinner while watching Breaking Bad, which is probably not the show you want to be watching while consuming. You're in fight or flight the whole time trying to digest this food. So I love that nutrient density and eat consciously. That's great, Karen. Thank you.
Consciously. And I just would add, Mason, too, just to go back to that very first point about don't beat yourself up, because it's just a process. Like, it's a journey of engagement. Like, day to day, we do what we can. But when you eat like shame and guilt, that does not serve, right? So really, just to be connected and be grounded, be mindful in yourself, and just, love yourself.
Amen to that. Yeah, absolutely. That should be the top tier. Don't judge yourself, because then who needs that kind of stress? And maybe if that's 1A, 1B might be don't judge others for their eating habits.
That's the truth, right? It's so intimate. Like, people, we get so disconnected in our culture, but like, drawing energy from our world to survive, to build, to nourish our mind, body, spirit is the most intimate piece, like, of our daily experience, right? Like, what else is more intimate than that? How can you judge someone else's journey? My great grandma would say, nobody knows where the shoe pinches except the fella that's wearing it. And that is the truth, right? So, non-judgment.
Absolutely. Thanks, great grandma. Was that your great grandma? Yeah. Love it. Well, why don't we kind of wrap things up with a couple closing questions? Curious for you personally, or it could be about AHG. Are there any projects you're excited about that you got coming up?
Yes.
Of
but
course.
I don't know if I'm ready to share.
Oh, okay.
No, I will. No, I'm going to share.
All right. Herbalist Hour exclusive.
Herbalist Hour. Well, no, I mean, I've done some talks on, like, looking at bridging functional phytotherapy and energetic herbalism, and kind of this bridge of, like, how do you really engage with functional phytotherapy, and exploring that. There's some textbooks, there are different things out there, folks that are kind of playing around with it. As a functional clinician, my functional training is like through the kind of IFM oriented training that we have in our doctoral program. So I'm looking at things like the merging of nutritional genomics and like, almost like we could call, like, phytogenomics. Like, when we look at those SNPs with nutritional genomics, those things that are impacting the way how our bodies might uniquely respond to certain foods, we can apply that with our herbs as well. And there's some great, like, literature research out there. And that's one of the things that gets me kind of like, wow, I'm looking at the different genetic kind of the ways that it's engaging with these most common SNPs, and kind of seeing the herbs in a new light that way. It's like, no matter how many explanatory models we come up with, it's always like more and more fun ways to kind of learn about and go deeper with our herbal practice. So that I'm working on, this kind of functionalphytotherapy.org. It's a work in progress. I'm just kind of starting to pull that together. And with the AHG, I mean, just this continuing of building, reconnecting with our roots, and also while maintaining our connection with this broader inclusive community, marrying the rigor and that inclusivity, right? I mean, all of those things are so important. And I am like, our board, we are all about how much we love the folks that came before and the folks that will come after those 7 generations, right? And we don't want anyone to feel like you don't have a place. We love you and we want you here, right? So that's that. I'm excited about that. I want to shout that from the hilltops, and I want to see our community come together. It doesn't matter what you believe, where you live, it doesn't matter. You are welcome, because that's the beauty of having a diverse community.
Love all that. Well, it sounds like you have several websites. Did you want to shout each one of them out here, and I'll include those in the podcast show notes?
The main one would be Nourish Well. Nourishwell.us is an easy way to get to it. Nourishwell.us. Okay. That's my main website. It is what I said about herbalists, like, applies to me. Like, I'm not the most beautiful. It's a kind of a utilitarian. Right? You know, I don't really
don't judge yourself.
Yeah, don't judge myself. But yeah, you know, just to get to know me a little better or reach out to contact me, that would be a great way to do it. Yeah, and then you've got that American Herbalist Guild website, and yeah, so check us out.
Well, I did just subscribe to your newsletter right before the call, so I don't know how often you release newsletters or whatever, but yeah, dear listener, check out her websites and subscribe to the newsletter. Any closing thoughts, Keren?
No, my only closing thought is, man, now I've got to get a newsletter together. So I'm going to get on that.
There's always something to do. So yeah, no pressure.
Oh, thanks so much, Mason. Again, really love all that you're doing. Love your energy. So grateful to be here and look forward to see more and hear more.
I appreciate that so much, and it was great to get to know you. This has been a lot more fun than just our standard email back and forth. So it's been a real pleasure, and I hope to get to hang out with you at a future American Herbalist Guild Symposium. Again, that's October, I want to say 13th to the 16th, Granby, Colorado. I thought it was October 19th for some reason, but at the website. No? Okay, cool. Yeah, right? 16th. Perfect. Granby, Colorado.
Online symposium.
That's right. That's also available. So awesome. Well, that's going to do it for this episode of the Herbalist Hour. Thanks y'all for listening/watching, and thanks to you, Keren, for joining us.
Awesome. Thanks, Mason. Thanks, everyone. Take care.
All right. Take care.
And that's going to do it for today's episode. Thanks so much for listening to the Herb Rally podcast. If you'd like to hear more from us here at Herb Rally, we now have a text message community, believe it or not. Basically, it's just updates from us. We send about 1 to 7 texts per week, notifying you about new events, videos, courses, podcasts. You get the idea. It's pretty much like our email newsletter, just in text form. So if you'd like to receive text messages from Herb Rally, just text JOIN, that's JOIN, to the number 541-256-2895. Again, that's JOIN to number 541-256-2895. And to stop receiving texts, that's easy too. Just text STOP to the same number. It'll opt you out immediately. Okay, thanks again for listening. Have a great rest of your day.